You're watching Into Vietnam Weekend. I'm Minh Nguyệt. In our program, we'll bring you comprehensive news about Vietnam's economy throughout the week, ending December 25th, following our major stories. 2011 Vietnam CPI was released by the Ministry of Industry and Trade at 18.12%. Vietnam learned international experiences in restructuring banking system. And our conversation with Dao Nguyen, Representative Director of Air France in Vietnam. But first, let's have a look at the figures of the week.
The Ministry of Planning and Investment said 2011 inflation of the country stayed at 18.12% after recording 0.53% increase in December. December CPI of the country was believed not to reflect electricity price increase of 5% and air ticket selling price of 20%. This year, month-on-month CPI soared in the first quarter, reaching the peak of 3.32% in April before falling sharply in May and June and slowed down from August, staying under 1% in the last 4 months. Analysts expected January CPI of next year would accelerate much due to double impacts of both factors.
The General Statistics Office estimated that Vietnam incurs a trade deficit of more than $9.5 billion in 2011. It shows a decrease of 25% from last year. The decrease is mainly supported by an increase in the country's export revenue. In details, Vietnam earns a total of $96.26 billion from exports, up 33% on year, when it spent $105.77 billion on imports, up 25% on year. Apparel, crude oil and footwear are key export staples in 2011. Meanwhile, machineries, equipment, petroleum, electronics, air conditioners and spare parts are major import commodities during the year.
The State Bank of Vietnam targets to limit credit growth at 15 to 17% in 2012. The information was cited from the press release on the orientation, objective, and 7 measures to govern the monetary policies in the coming year by the state agency. It was affirmed that the monetary policy will be continued governing tightly and flexibly to curb inflation, stabilize the macroeconomy, and support economic growth at a reasonable level. The measures are also expected to ensure the stability of monetary and forex markets in line with macroeconomic conditions and the safety of credit institutions.
Nguyễn Văn Bình, Governor of the State Bank of Vietnam, said Vietnam is expected to enjoy a surplus of $2 billion in balance of payment in 2012. The expectation is supported by narrow trade deficit and stable exchange rate management policy. Governor added the central bank could basically continue tightening monetary policy in 2012. Particularly, it will adjust the local interest rates in accordance with targeted inflation and market signals.
We now move on to securities news. Vietnamese stocks have a negative trading week from December the 19th to the 23rd. VN Index closed at a low of 32 months, while HNX Index ended at its all-time low since the operation.
VN Index fell for most of the week. This index closed the week at 356.21, down 9.82 points or 2.68% from the week before. Trading volume averaged 41.18 million units, totaling $757 billion. HNX Index formed another all-time low after continually dropping. This benchmark lost 1.82 points or 3.06% from the previous week. Average trading volume was 28.35 million units, valued as $241 billion. Put-through trading rose dramatically during the week. Liquidity averaged nearly $1 trillion per session. Foreign investors were net sellers on Ho Chi Minh Stock Exchange with $589 million worth of 18 million units. Meanwhile, they net bought 5 million units, totaling $51.8 billion of the northern bonds.
In the next part of the program, we'll take a look at major macroeconomics and investment events during the past week.
The National Financial Supervision Commission, the University of Economics and Business, and the Deposit Insurance of Vietnam on Wednesday co-organized a workshop on the international experiences of banking restructuring and implications for Vietnam. The workshop discussed the banking restructuring process based on international experiences and proposed the suggestions for the local policymakers in the implementation of the restructuring. The workshop was seen as a good start for a complete research of the field, supporting theoretical frameworks for the implementation of restructuring Vietnam's banking system in the near future. Speakers at the convention assessed banking restructuring in Vietnam was a need, but it should be implemented carefully. They attributed the process had been implemented in many other countries, but the results were proved as under expectation. Bad debt of the whole banking system of Vietnam was said to be too high, and it's necessary to deal with this first and fast. The speakers at this workshop also presented experiences from many other countries like England, France, the USA, Japan, South Korea, and the Southeast Asian countries. Some of the lessons that Vietnamese policymakers could consider as clear objectives of the implementation, clear plan, good preparation, as well as good media relations.
This will not only require
The State Securities Commission said the plan to restructure the local stock market will be submitted to the Prime Minister within this month. The goal of the plan was set to ensure all types of securities could be easily and transparently traded under effective supervision of the government. The Vietnam Association of Securities Business said, instead of M&As, the local securities companies could be separated into two different types, which are security brokerage companies and the securities trading businesses.
The electricity of Vietnam, or EVN, will increase electricity prices by 5% from Tuesday after it was green-lighted by the Ministry of Industry and Trade. The average price, which is excluded from value-added tax, will be up 62 dong to 1,304 dong per kilowatt-hour. EVN reasoned the price increase to real production costs and the unexpected expenses of buying power from non-hydropower resources. Besides, the adjustment is also aimed to cover losses caused by buying oil for production and foreign exchange differences. An electricity price of Vietnam is expected to rise by 10% in 2012.
The Ministry of Finance recently unveiled a draft decree on capital and financial management of local state-owned enterprises to remit around 50% of after-tax profit to state budget. After paying corporate income tax, offsetting losses of previous years, and appropriating financial reserve funds, the state-owned enterprises would have to remit 50% of remaining profits to the Enterprises Development and Reorganization Support Fund, which is managed by the State Capital Investment.
The World Bank has recently approved $475 million credit line to help Vietnam implement 3 development projects. Of the total, $210 million can be funded a project to improve access to effective and sustainable infrastructure services in the cities of Lao Cai, Phu Lý, and Vinh. $97 million can be spent on a project to help improve rural communities' access to markets, non-agricultural economic opportunities, and social services. The remainder will be used for a poverty reduction project. The loan has a term of 25 years. Payment can begin after 5 years of implementation.
The World Bank was reported to provide Vietnam $4.2 billion in the next 5 years to support the country deal with challenges of a low middle-income country. The fund was said to be the largest amount the World Bank ever allocated to Vietnam so far. The World Bank expects to support the Southeast Asian country to enhance the competitiveness in the regional as well as the global economy and improve sustainability during the development process. The fund was seen as key investment for Vietnam to transmit successfully to a middle-income country.
Bad debt of the country's commercial banks was reported to be double or triple the published figures by the State Bank of Vietnam if applying new standard. Earlier data from the central bank showed that local banks have lent out around 2,500 trillion dong, of which nearly 3.4% was bad debt, or roughly 85.3 trillion dong. The bad debt was supposed to be safe if it could not exceed 5% of the total outstanding loans. However, bad debts at Vietnam's banking system were said to be hinder so many risks.
Following now is some foreign trade news.
The Vietnam Steel Association said if the whole year of 2010, the local steel industry has exported 1.3 million tons of steel. During 11 months, the country has exported over 1.7 million tons of steel, totaling over $1.5 billion. The steel industry is expected to export around 2 million tons of steel in 2011, earning $1.8 billion, the highest export revenue ever of the steel industry. 2011 was also the very first year that steel was leaders among top export products with over $1 billion of revenue of the Southeast Asia country. Data from the Ministry of Agriculture and Rural Development show that seafood export revenue of the country amounted to $6 billion. Total seafood output of the country amounted to 5.2 million tons, up over 4% in comparison with the year plan and over 1.5% over the same period of 2010. Of the total, seafood catching output reached 2.2 million tons, and the rest came from breeding output. The sector targets to export $6.3 to $6.5 billion worth of seafood products to overseas in 2012. Mekong Delta region has recently exported 91,000 tons of rice, bringing the total rice export of the region up to now to over 6 million tons, valued at more than $3 billion. The figures shows increases of 7% in volume and 16% in value on year. Biggest consumption market of mixed rice during the period was Asian countries, which Indonesia and the Philippines accounted for 40% of total Vietnamese rice export. Africa was followed with 24%, which Bangladesh, Senegal, and Ghana were in leading positions.
Vietnam Airlines has recently raised selling air ticket price for domestic flights, effective from December the 15th. Risks raised concerns for not only the individual travelers, but the involved traveling businesses, because it would somehow influence on the tourism industry. Following is some records of VITV's reporters around these difficulties.
The company signs a contract that provides 5-day, 5-night packaged tour, namely Hanoi Nha Trang Hanoi. The tour will start on December the 22nd to 26th for 31 passengers. The tour package costs each passenger around 5.85 million dong. Of the sum, a ticket costs up to 3.5 million dong, which accounts for over 50% of the total tour cost. The tour contract value was said to be reasonable in the past. However, since the information of air ticket has been raised by the national carrier Vietnam Airlines, the company has to manage to deal with many difficulties from tour costs.
Thực tế là bây giờ những cái tour nội địa trong nước bây giờ cái tiền lãi đấy thì người ta bây giờ bình thường cũng chỉ đến 10 đến 15% của cái giá tour đấy là cùng. Thế nhưng mà bây giờ nếu mà nó chiếm như vậy là mà tăng như này, nó tăng đến mấy chục % so với giá tour thì làm sao công ty nào có thể chịu nổi cái điều đó.
The air ticket price has been risen by 20% from December the 15th. By mental arithmetic, it can be seen that green travel company will have to offset around 700,000 dong per passengers for the contract side. But this contract is not the only one that the company has signed with clients before the departure date. The surprising announcement from Vietnam Airlines has led this traveling enterprise unable to respond. It is the same difficulty that other traveling and tour companies are facing.
Cái việc hàng không Việt Nam thông báo tăng trần giá vé từ ngày 15 tháng 12 thì cũng là khá đột ngột đối với khách hàng nói chung và các công ty du lịch nói riêng. Đa số cũng giống như đa số các công ty du lịch, đơn vị chúng tôi cũng đã có những cái chương trình ký kết với khách hàng. Điều này cũng bắt buộc là chúng tôi phải có những cái đàm phán lại với khách hàng, đồng thời có những cái hướng tích cực chủ động đưa ra đối với khách hàng bằng cách là mình giảm bớt lợi nhuận và đàm phán với khách hàng để điều chỉnh một chút cái chi phí để bù đắp vào những cái mức tăng của hàng không Việt Nam. Thế nhưng mà tất nhiên cái mức bù đắp của khách hàng và cái mức giảm lợi nhuận chi phí của chúng tôi cũng không thể tương đương với cái mức tăng của hàng không được.
According to Civil Aviation Authority of Vietnam, air ticket price raised this time is based on selling air ticket price mechanism. Air ticket selling price is calculated on several costs like fuel prices, pilot salary, aircraft maintenance, plus foreign exchange rate fluctuations. We already knew that local aviation industry still had to offset losses for flights, but perhaps it cannot say that it's necessary to increase the price and increase it immediately, as it will lead to many consequences. Instead of increasing surprisingly fast like this time, there should be appropriate route for air ticket price increase, or we need more time so that both individuals and business organizations can adjust, especially in the context of current price escalation.
Doanh nghiệp về bây giờ ví dụ như kinh doanh về hàng không, người ta lỗ thì người ta phải tăng giá, nếu không thì người ta sẽ phá sản, thì điều đấy là hoàn toàn là đúng. Nhưng người ta cần phải có nội trình, cần phải thông báo trước, không thì chỉ vì là để bảo vệ cho cái doanh nghiệp người ta thì tự nhiên nó sẽ ảnh hưởng đến các doanh nghiệp khác rất là nhiều.
Tôi cho rằng là một số dịch vụ, kể cả trong đó có dịch vụ hàng không và dịch vụ vận chuyển, cần phải được điều chỉnh cho thích hợp với xu hướng thị trường và tạo điều kiện tích lũy cho doanh nghiệp. Nhưng đồng thời nhà nước có thể xác định một số cái biện pháp kiểm soát một cái khung nào đó để tạo điều kiện cho cái người tiêu dùng nói chung, trong đó doanh nghiệp là một trong những nhóm người tiêu dùng.
We cannot deny raising air ticket price is necessary. However, from our study, two-way air ticket price from Ho Chi Minh City to Hanoi currently is not much different from a 5-day, 4-night package tour price to Thailand, even the flight distance is the same. If a Vietnamese tourist saves his money for not spending on tourism purposes, at that time not only the tourism businesses, but also the carriers will lose a number of customers.
Vietnam airline market is set to achieve a rapid growth in recent years. In the final part of the program, we'll bring you a closer look on the airway markets of Vietnam via our conversation with Mr. Dao Nguyen, Representative Director of Air France in Vietnam. Let's meet him now.
Hello, Mr. Dao Nguyen, and welcome to our program this week. And first of all, how do you evaluate the rapid development of Vietnam's airway market? What do you think is the key reasons for it?
The main reason of the growth regarding the Vietnamese market is, I assume that due to globalization, first of all, but it's not only the main reason regarding the growth of the market. Especially, I'm thinking is the country is starting to be developing to move to the classical market as the European markets, and people with the salary increase expect to enjoy life and enjoy travel and enjoy vacation.
As there are many firms operating in the same market, so the competition is becoming more and more severe. So how do you evaluate the Vietnam's airway market in the coming time?
If I remember a growth yearly regarding Vietnam traffic is around 20%. but within those 20%, the traffic growth from Europe to Vietnam is around 5 or 6%, meaning that the main part of the growth is focused on the intra-Asia traffic between Vietnam and China, between Vietnam and Japan or Thailand. Then the most growth, the traffic growth is for the time being much more focused on those type of traffic. Regarding Air France activity or European activities, we are not directly concerned. But more or less 5% of natural market growth is very important. If you have a log from 10 years ago, meaning that you have 100% of traffic multiplied by 5% during 10 years, is very, very important. I'm much more focused on what should be a type of traffic. The growth should be accompanied by the increase of advantages, services, the price, and the cost regarding the island offers.
And as you know, in the Vietnam airway market, Vietnam Airlines is accounting for about 70% of the market shares. And besides, we also have many other foreign firms as well as domestic ones operating in the low-cost segments. So what is Air France doing to compete with the others?
First of all, I just want to remind that during the past, Air France was the only one European carrier who continues to maintain its operations from Europe to Ho Chi Minh City and to Hanoi. Even after 1975, maybe we have the break during 3 weeks or 1 month, but after that, immediately Air France continued to be there to link Paris directly to Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh City. And right now, the only 2 carriers who are able to propose a direct flight from Hanoi and Ho Chi Minh to Paris or to Frankfurt are Vietnam Airlines and Air France. Both of us, we are able to propose a direct flight within 12 hours between Paris and Vietnam. You know, low-cost carriers are not, for the time being, are not our direct competitors, because much more the fight has been between Vietnam Airlines and Air Mekong maybe, or Jetstar, but not directly to the European carriers. Cathay Pacific or Thai Airways or Malaysian Airlines, they're very good carriers. That's product, but the elapsed time, meaning that the total time you have to consume for traveling from Vietnam to Europe, you have to spend at least between 3 and 6 hours more than the direct flight. That's why those carriers are eager to have a very aggressive commercial policies, because the price could not be higher than Vietnam Airlines and Air France.
What do you think is the benefit of customer?
In the normal situation, just to be clear, the normal situation, competition could be the good thing for customer, because competition will give some advantage, but this advantage couldn't be considered only as an advantage while you are the price by maintaining the same quality of the product. If due to the competition I'm able to propose you a cheaper price with exactly the same quality of services, the same quality of product, then in that case you can say, okay, competition is a good thing. But when you have a cheaper price by consuming much more hours for traveling exactly at the same origin and destinations, maybe you have the lack of quality of services, the lack of quality of product, a seat, a lounge, then it's not only the price, because if the price is cheaper, but at the same time you don't have the same quality of services linked to the price you paid, we cannot consider that this is an advantage to the customers. That's why we have to well analyze what is the real advantage in terms of price, but fully linked to the global services offer as a global offer from the carrier to the customer. Then only if you can get the same, exactly the same product cheaper, then okay, I can consider that advantage. But for the time being, it's not the case.
And as a big foreign firm playing in the Vietnam's airway market, so what are you looking for in this market?
First of all, as I already explained, historically speaking, Air France has been in Vietnam for a long time. If I well remember, the first Air France flight has been operated from Marseille to Ho Chi Minh City in 1931. In 1931, with the total days was 8 days, if I well remember, with 18 connecting points. You spend 8 days from Paris to Ho Chi Minh City in 1931. In 1938, we start to have our weekly flights. Until now, Air France has been considered as the second Vietnamese carrier because we have already been here. We just continue our market presence. And as I said, I mean, the Vietnamese market is a very potential market. And our strategic partners is already Vietnam flag carriers, Vietnam Airlines. And both of us, we try to be a preferred carriers. And I wish to make Air France the most Vietnamese company in Vietnam, even if we are Air France.
Thank you very much for joining us today.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, and we wish you have a good business year.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
The conversation has concluded our program this week. Thanks for your watching. For comments and feedbacks, please send it an email at intervietnam@vitv.vn or call us at 0422208288 or 0983566844. Goodbye and see you again.